Welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Inside the Fox 59 studio, I'm Dave Griffith. Sure appreciate you joining us. If you are watching on YouTube or our Fox 59 Now app, certainly appreciate that as well. We're giving both Matt Adams and Mike Chappell the week off this week because the Colts are getting close to preseason football. And the training camp as well coming to Grand Park in short order. But before we get to all that, before we get to all the analysis that's to come over the coming weeks and months of the Colts season, we're going to put a bow on everything that happened in the offseason. And it was quite the eventful offseason for the Colts. Right now, the last thing that happened for them was that mandatory minicamp in the middle of June. Several players, several coaches were there to speak. Anthony Richardson was not in particular, and that is one thing that stands out. Quarterback was injured during that final week of the offseason program, did not get to participate with the team, but we will, of course, hear from him when the team resumes their action in training camp coming up in Westfield shortly. So let's listen to a couple of the coaches and players at that mandatory Colts minicamp to wrap up this Colts offseason. First, head coach Shane Steichen.
6 weeks off, what do you tell the guys breaking camp here?
Just take care of your bodies, right? I mean, you get this break right now, about 5 weeks for these guys, just to maintain the focus. Obviously, they'll probably spend some time with their families, but really we got to come back ready when we hit July 22nd. So make sure they're handling their business every single day this offseason to make sure we're ready to roll.
You guys did your work before you signed Jones.
Yeah.
You knew what you were getting.
Yeah.
Are you surprised at all? Have you got more than maybe you anticipated?
Very pleased with what we got right now. He's been doing a hell of a job. Really smart football player. Learned the offense very quickly, making really good decisions out there through OTAs. Obviously want to carry that over to training camp, but he's done a really good job. Great command in the huddle. Ultimate pro.
It feels like, normally when a new quarterback comes in and talk about learning an offense, but it feels like the ball's coming out quick and on time.
Yeah.
Not learning the offense, like our
Yeah, I mean, he's a veteran player, obviously. Like I said, very intelligent. He works at it, grinds at it. So not surprised on how he's picked up the offense. Obviously, those meetings we have in the quarterback room with those guys, the conversations that we have, they've been really good. So been very pleased with him.
We've talked a lot about AD, but I mean, a recurring theme with him is he shows up in practice. What's the next step in taking it to the game and continuing it there? Yeah,
that's a great question. I think, last offseason, same thing, did some really good things. He's had a hell of an offseason so far through OTAs. Expect that to continue through training camp. But getting to those game situations, just continuing to get those game reps and really taking that next step. And as us as coaches, putting him in a really good position to succeed on the field. So obviously looking at some different things to use him this year in certain situations. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, there's players that have that sort of tendency, and if you've encountered this before, where maybe they show up in practice and maybe they aren't as consistent in the game. Does it tend to usually come eventually?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you see some of these guys around the league. I mean, obviously there's a ton of stories. Obviously, he had his rookie year, and the rookie year went the way it went, but got a ton of faith and belief in his abilities to take that jump this year.
So how much contact are you all allowed to have with Anthony throughout this period, and I guess how you monitor just the progress of the shoulder?
Yeah, we'll have a plan. Obviously, he's got his trainers in Florida. We got our trainers here. We'll have a detailed plan going into this offseason, but we'll be in contact via phone, make sure we're constantly communicating.
Shane, you remember your first thought when you realized that Carly was on the sideline with the headset on?
My first thought? You know what? I thought it was great. I'm not going to lie. I mean, she said it. It's real. Like, you got to know what's going on as an owner. For her to be on the sidelines, I think it's a great deal. So she knows exactly what's going on game day for sure.
There's not a two-way, I mean, she doesn't chime in.
No, she doesn't talk. She just listens. No, she listens. She just listens, and that's what it is, yeah.
Carly said that, you and Chris know you have things to fix and you want to do it. So I guess, do you feel like just that urgency to win, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think there's urgency every year, every week, every day in this profession. And we got to be the best versions of ourselves and continue the process of self-improvement, right? That's what it is. You got to improve on yourself. You got to improve as a team every single day to get to where you want to be.
Didn't see a couple more today.
Yeah, he got dinged in individual period, so the other day. Jalen Jones, he's soft tissue.
You've had Lou Anarumo in here going against him several weeks now. Did anything change? Like, did it become even more real? Because obviously you've had your eyes on him as a good competitor for a while.
Yeah, I think, we've talked about it when I hired him, just the multiplicity that he can bring defensively to the scheme, the different looks, he disguises. I think it's going to be really beneficial for our defense, but also for our offense going into training camp, seeing different looks. But it's been a pleasure to have him so far.
Shane, what was the call with Desmond Ridder bringing him in?
Just have an extra arm during minicamp with Anthony.
Do you expect him to stay around?
We'll see.
That was Colts head coach Shane Steichen. Coming up next, it is the new defensive coordinator for the Horseshoes, Lou Anarumo, in his first year with Indianapolis after previously spending time in his career with the Cincinnati Bengals, trying to get this Colts defense among the best in the NFL.
Didn't you bring in a proven corner and a proven safety? How long does it take them to sort of mesh? Can that get done quickly at OTAs and camp?
Yeah, I think it starts now, obviously. Have been through this experience back in 21 when we signed, Chidobe Awuzie. Vaughn Bell had been there for a year, so he had a mesh with Vaughn and Jesse. Brought in Trey Henderson, brought in Mike Hilton all that year, and, ended up doing what we did. So it starts in the spring, getting a good feel for each other, but now that we're really, today and tomorrow, I feel like we're in a good place with that portion of what, where we're at on defense.
What are you seeing from Justin Wally in particular and some of the instinct stuff that he's displayed?
He's done a great job so far, young guy and still learning. We had a very teachable moment this morning in front of the group. He is really taken to the position well. I think that, he's got a long way to go, but the first mark of a corner is, how you're covering, and I don't care if you have pads on or not. Either you can or you can't, and he's done a good job so far. He's just got to get the details of it, but we like it, the trajectory that he's on.
Care to share the teachable moment?
No, we call that, that's kind of like every family has their living room, their own space. You air out your grievances. We also have teachable moments in front of the group, and his was a very simple one that was pointed out to him by me in front of everybody, and I think he'll remember it going forward.
How much do you look at Zaire and Jalen right now and look at they've got a lot of ground to make up, not a lot of ground to make up? How do you kind of view it?
Well, I mean, they've been doing as much as they can within the rules, as in terms of their injuries and stuff, but extra meetings with Coach Betcher and just staying ahead of it. Ultimately, they play linebacker. They got to get down in there and get used to playing football again at some point, and hopefully that's sooner than later. But mentally, they're trying to stay with it as best they can.
Where do you see the next, the biggest leap, for lack of a lot to? Still a very young player. What did you see, and where do you see that thing?
Well, you see the God-given athletic ability as soon as you watch him, as soon as the tape turns on, as soon as you see him on the field. That's anybody can see that. Now it's just going to be the recognition of how he's about to get blocked, both in the run game and the pass game. I think that's coming a little bit each day. Just his knowledge of overall, hey, I've got help here, I don't have help here. I'm going to work with Buck or Grove on this particular play on a game, whoever may be out there with him. I think all that is still ahead of him, but really like where he's at, and sky's the limit for him.
He talked, and we saw last year how many times he was almost there. Is that maybe the second years where maybe the instincts and the reaction is just a split second quicker to where he finishes?
I think so. That happens. Rookies generally they improve each year, obviously. But he was close, as you mentioned, many times. And this year we feel like he'll seal the deal. So looking forward to it.
You saw Juju Brents yesterday, and I mean, there's been a lot of stop and go with him the last couple of years.
Yeah.
He really is. He thinks he's a really good fit to play your scheme and lots of physicality and all. But where is he at, and where is your view of him, given a small body of work?
Yeah.
But a lot of talent.
Well, I think, like you said, I think it's just going to be as we progress through the spring. We're at near the end here now, and then we get into training camp. I think just consistency of work, and that's going to have to show throughout training camp, throughout the preseason games, to determine who's going to get that job, and the competition there is great. But you got to be consistent. You know, I don't want a lot of high ups and downs, especially at that position. I want to know what we're going to get week in and week out. It's a really, really hard job that he has. He's got to guard elite players, but you got to be consistent at it. So, he's got all the ability in the world, and just one day at a time, we'll just keep stacking days for him, and that'll be important.
Lou, how do you evaluate tackling in a training camp setting?
Well, either you make it or you don't. And when we're going to have some live situations, obviously in the preseason games, but there'll be some in limited, you know how it is in training camp. But, we'll just take what we're building from here in the spring and bring it over to training camp. And there's a number of different ways. I've always said it, coaching the DBs for a long time, tackling is about timing and angles, and that's all the non-physical part of it. So we can handle the first, 3/4 of the tackle by just getting in a good position, and then, we drill the remainder of it, both now and in preseason. So it's generally the way it's been over the years now, with less tackling during training camp. You go through the first couple preseason games, it's a little rusty. Even in the first couple games, you don't want it to be, but generally by week 3 or week 4, you got to be humming in terms of being a good tackling defense, and that's how we're evaluated.
Physicality in camp is probably different when you first enter the league.
Oh yeah, yes. You're just more live stuff. Well, the rules are the rules, so I wish a lot of things, but that's just what we have to deal with, and everybody's dealing with it, so it's not like we're unique to it.
The roster's always changing, you're always looking around. When you see a Jermaine Pratt's let go, do you go to Chris and say, what do you think, or do you leave that to him? How does that work?
Well, I'm not going to comment on somebody that's not on our team, but Chris and his group of personnel guys, they do a phenomenal job, and they deal with that part of it. We have great open communication all the time. It's been tremendous, but I'll leave that for another day.
Coming in, you knew Kenny Moore was a very talented player, but what have you learned about him spending time with him this spring?
I like Kenny a lot. First and foremost, a great person. Does so much for the organization, for the community. I think that's some of the things that get mentioned but not mentioned enough about our players. All that they do on their free time away from their families. They give so much to the community, and certainly Kenny's one of the many that we have on our team. But just in terms of being a football player, I think, he brings some of the things I'm used to, with Mike Hilton. Some of their style is similar. Excuse me. Kenny's a good blitzer. He's can guard guys in the slot. He's been a take the ball away guy. So, and then his instincts and just being around, and things happen fast in there in the slot. So, he's been doing it for a long time, and just his overall communication, his calm demeanor will help maybe some of the young guys that may have to play. So just a lot of arrow ups with Kenny. I'm a big fan.
As Lou Anarumo gets used to his time here in Indianapolis, now Jim Bob Cooter is entering another year as the Colts offensive coordinator, certainly working with Shane Steichen quite a bit to put that offensive unit together. Here's Jim Bob Cooter during the Colts mandatory minicamp in June.
I've always appreciated sort of the family atmosphere here with the Colts. They treated me really well personally, and like I said, always sort of have appreciated that and been grateful for that. I know we're all excited for Carly, Casey, and Kaylin to carry on the tradition their father created, and we're excited for the upcoming season. So with that, I will open up. You guys have at it.
Jim Bob, one more on Jim Irsay. Do you remember just your first interaction, just getting that first chance? Kind of, can you take us through? That was
I was such a young coach, you could find me in the back of a bunch of meeting rooms, in the back of some, I'm lucky to say, a lot of winning locker rooms back then. I was a young coach for a team that was, these guys were winning a ton of games, and I was lucky enough to get put in that situation. So to watch Mr. Irsay sort of lead the group, whether it was through a speech or through a comment or just shaking hands with everybody, was always an exciting moment for us. You know, we were pushing and striving to be our best, to do the best, and sort of attacking, you know, all those goals, winning playoff games and going deep into playoff runs. And he was right there, sort of leading the charge. And as a young coach, that was really cool to see.
We've heard from a lot of players that Carly has, we've all seen her on the sidelines here, and she's also dropped in on meetings and things like that. As a coach, how much do you appreciate having someone in her position who wants to get it?
Yeah, it's been really cool. She's been in a ton of different, like I said, meetings, practices around, you know, a lot of the stuff that we do as coaches. You don't often get, you know, people in those roles in those meetings. She's asking questions, trying to learn a ton about different things, and then also sort of teaching us things about different aspects of the game. She's been great to work with, great to be around. It's been a great few years of that, and been fun having her in a ton of different meetings and hearing her input. And she's very knowledgeable, but very interested in gaining that knowledge. That's how she's gotten to this spot. So it's been really cool.
Jim Bob, I imagine you watched a lot of film with Daniel Jones when you guys were considering him, but now that he's been in the building for these couple months, what are there some new things that you've learned?
Yeah, he's been just excellent in meetings, practice preparation. You know, we're sort of learning our defensive scheme together and working through some of that stuff with him as you go that route as a coaching staff in a quarterback or a quarterback room. Ideas get created, ideas get thought of. We have those discussions. Do we want to try that today? Do we want to do that? Can we put that in? Can we adjust this route a certain way? Those are common discussions in quarterback rooms around the league. So to hear his ideas and his thoughts and have him be a part of that has been really interesting. He puts in the work sort of early and late. He's out there communicating with his teammates, trying to put his best foot forward and have his best practice while also sort of leading the group. So been a good start. We got a lot of work left to do, and he knows that, and we all know that. But you know, he's done a nice job of coming in and putting the work in, preparing to go sort of execute in practice. And you know, these days in OTAs, you have usually about 3 practices a week. So you get 3 really good opportunities to prepare and execute in practice. And then, you know, when you do that well a few times in a row, builds a little confidence. You're able to go get a little bit more aggressive, and we've seen a little bit of that as we've gone through the weeks.
Jim Bob, did you have any, you knew of Daniel Jones before you got here, but have you seen something different? Have you learned something different, or is this sort of what you anticipated?
Well, we did our due diligence, calling around background type stuff. Some of us know people that have worked with him or been around him or coached him or played with him, and we were, sort of asking all those questions and trying to dig in, because with any player we bring in here, we try to do the background and make sure we know sort of what kind of guy we're bringing in, what his work habits are like, preparation, leadership, communication, teamwork, all that good stuff. Daniel had a lot of good notes coming through that, but we're always interested when you get a guy in the building, what do you see? He's been as advertised with the work habits and the preparation and going about his business, just day in, day out consistency, which has been great. It's obviously early. It's I don't know if you call it spring anymore, but it's about the end of sort of the spring season here for us as an NFL team. We'll come back in training camp, and gosh, we'll learn a ton about him, but everybody on our team. That'll be a really fun process. But he's done a great job thus far, and really sort of lived up to the billing of those type of things.
You said you were calling around. This was after you all had signed him? Just to get like...
No, as you're doing prep, as you're evaluating a free agent class or a draft class or any of those things, as a coaching staff, we watch tape, we write up the film, we have our thoughts on the player that we see on tape, but we like going into the weeds a little bit on what kind of person he is and his work habits and his consistency and all those things. So whether it's having someone that's been on staff when he's when he's been playing or just someone he's played with that we respect. In this league, you end up knowing a bunch of people, and they know you, and they know them, and you're able to get a feel for a lot of guys that you bring onto your team because you want to make sure you're doing the right thing for the organization that way.
We talked about some areas of growth for him. What do you see specifically with that? When you got here, you said there were some steps he needed to take as a player. What would you pinpoint as things are growing?
Right now, area number one is sort of focusing on learning and mastering the offense that we have. We've got some different verbiage. We've got some obviously different teammates that he's working with. For a quarterback, you want to have mastery of the information. And, when you hear something the first time, you learn it. And I think as you rep it, as you refine it, as you dive into the details on it, at a certain point, you master it. I don't think any NFL team is mastering, their offense during the spring. It's going to come. It's going to be a part of a process, especially if you're a new player in that offense. So that's a very big part of any quarterback preparing for their role in the upcoming season. He's working hard on that. Other than that, we're working on developing him as a player the same way we are everybody, and everybody's got their little things. Quarterback-wise, we can sort of harp on a bunch of different technique things, which I don't want to individualize here in this situation. But we're working through a bunch of stuff. The most important thing is sort of learning our offense, learning his teammates, and then us as a coaching staff doing a good job of sort of putting those guys in a good position to do that over the next couple months, especially when we get to training camp.
It's unfortunate what AR is going through, but the silver lining, Daniel's getting more work. Is it going to sort of accelerate his assimilation into the offense or not?
It's the reps are really, really important. I think the truth of the matter is we were going to get a bunch of reps for both of those guys. Daniel's still going to receive a bunch of reps. I think that bunch versus bunch number is probably a little bit more, but not a ton. He's going to get a little more work with the first group, which is important when you're getting to know your receivers and working with your offensive line and all those things. So there will be some benefits there for him for sure. It is unfortunate for Anthony, but it's part of the game, and Anthony's been doing a really good job staying involved, staying mentally locked in, and working like crazy to get the mental reps out there, which is what he can do at this moment.
Does that mean that Riley Leonard is going to benefit and get more reps?
Yeah, the reps are going to go. The reps are going to sort of get maneuvered around in the quarterback room. Anytime you have an injury at any position, other guys in that room are going to pick up a few reps. Riley's going to get a few extra reps. Jason Bean's going to get a few extra reps. I'm going to say the word rep a lot of times today, but any rep that we can get a young player, we're really excited about. It's good. It's great for a quarterback, but shoot, I'm excited about young receivers and young offensive linemen, everybody getting reps. So reps have a lot of value, and for a Riley Leonard, a Jason Bean, any of these guys, a Tyler Warren, I'm a young player, I get an extra rep or two, that's going to be good for me, and I think it's going to be good for Riley to have a few extra reps.
About A.D. Mitchell, we talked to him, he seems like he's in a good headspace, but look, I mean, he does need to take a step, right? So what specifically do you need him to do this year to be that player you guys think he?
Yeah, AD's had an exciting start to the offseason. He's been really playing good football out there, getting open, making catches. It's a consistency thing, like Shane's talked about with our offense, with our team, with a lot of our guys. It's attacking each day with consistency, going out there and if you're A.D. Mitchell and you have some really good ability to go get open and make great catches, well, that's going to be the expectation day in, day out. And he's done a really nice job. He's had a great attitude attacking this spring. He's had some opportunities in practice, and he's made the most of those things, and those will keep coming. As we go through a training camp, you guys will know, like, guys will get a bunch of different reps with a bunch of different groups and several different quarterbacks sometimes. And that's a lot of times where you as a receiver can make your impact, because as you keep making those plays, as you consistently make those plays, you can be relied on to make those plays. The quarterbacks are going to be excited to give you the opportunities to make those plays because they know, shoot, there's my 20-yard completion. I can hit A.D. Mitchell on this deep out route right here. He's going to be open. He's going to make that play. He's going to get his feet in bounds. It's a consistency thing, which, like I said, he's doing an excellent job right now. We're going to push our entire offense to be extremely consistent with how we work the rest of this mini camp, but then all of training camp. We're looking for guys that sort of day in, day out are doing really, really good work, giving their best, and executing at the best that they have the ability to do. Like I said, AD's been really, really good thus far, and you guys have always sort of heard me betting on AD. I'm still betting on AD, but we're gonna keep pushing him to have great practices every single day. And shoot, we want him to make every play. I want him to make every play. He wants to make every play. We're gonna keep pushing him that direction, see where we end up.
Last question. Jim, Shane said that one of the biggest reasons why he brought in Lou and for this defense, because it's one of the defenses that he had some of the most troubles going up against in terms of game action. Now that you're seeing it every day, how much do you think that's helping the overall offense become more sharp because you're seeing it, the tough scheme day in, day out?
Yeah, we're working through a bunch of different looks, whether it be certain different front structure, certain different pressure packages that are really beneficial for us as an offense, and it's going to continue to be that way through training camp. I think when you get stressed in different ways, offensively, schematically, you have to figure out ways to solve those problems, solve those stresses, whether it's just, sort of our protection unit picking up a blitz, or us as a coaching staff finding a schematic way to put our guys in a position to have a shot at success on a play. Those things stress you, and those things make you better. Ultimately, we think that's going to make us better as an offense. We just did a big old long walkthrough. There was a ton of different looks, a ton of different things going on. A lot of things for our guys to try to maybe pick up a blitz or block a run play the right way and communicate the right way versus a different front, those types of things. That's only going to make us better as we approach the fall. There's a long way to go to get there, but it's a good opponent schematically for us to really work through some different stuff. Then obviously our guys on defense play so hard that they're gonna work us physically as well. So it's gonna be a great finish to the spring and a great training camp.
What did you guys see with Desmond Ridder to bring him in to see what he's got?
Yeah, Desmond's been around the league a little bit, played a little bit, really respected guy in different locker rooms. I think goes about his business the right way. Just an opportunity for us to get him in here and let him work a little bit individual, maybe a couple reps here or there, kind of see what all he's got. And that's one of the benefits of a veteran mini camp like this. You have the opportunity to do that at some different positions, and we were excited to get him in here and let him kind of compete with these other guys and throw a few balls in individual quarterbacks and kind of see what he's made of.
So we've heard from Jim Bob Cooter, Colts offensive coordinator. We've heard from Lou Anarumo, Colts defensive coordinator. Now the special teams coordinator is left. That's Brian Mason.
Obviously, it's been a tough time here the last couple of weeks since the unfortunate passing of Mr. Irsay. As somebody that was, born and raised in Indianapolis, grew up a Colts fan, really fortunate and blessed to be going into my third year here, with the Colts. And just really fortunate and kind of an amazing experience, growing up a fan and then to be able to be in the organization and see firsthand how well the organization is run from top to bottom, the amazing culture that Mr. Irsay built. And only being here a little bit over 2 years with him, I didn't have a ton of interaction, but know from both being a fan, growing up in the community, and then being able to be working here as a Colts coach, he had a tremendous impact on the community. He had a tremendous impact on the growth of football in the state of Indiana, which you can kind of see from the time that I was growing up in youth football to where football is today. In Indiana has a lot to do with Mr. Irsay, the Irsay family, and the Colts organization, which is unbelievable, the impact that they've had. And we're really fortunate, obviously to have Carly, Casey, and Kaylin, as you guys met with them yesterday, to be able to take over and continue that standard, that tradition, and that culture that we have built here that have had such a tremendous impact on the community.
Had you ever met him before you got here 3 years ago?
I had not met him before getting here, no. No, so before getting hired here, I'd not met Chris Ballard before. I'd never met Shane Steichen before. I'd never met anybody in the Irsay family before.
So what was that like to meet him for the first time when you grow up and spend your life here? This is the guy who brought a Super Bowl here.
Yeah, certainly everything was really surreal when I was first here. Even when I interviewed and I was in the team room, I'm like, man, I'm probably not going to get this job, but it's unbelievable that I'm in the team room right now, So, and then, just being able to be around and see how everything was run and to be able to meet the Irsay family. I spent a lot more time with Carly, because she's a lot more involved day to day, especially in the coaching aspect of things. So I spend a lot of time, much more time with her than other people in the Irsay family, including Mr. Irsay. But just being able to see how they run things and how they do everything, growing up a fan was obviously surreal. The first time we coached a game, 2 years ago in Lucas Oil Stadium was super surreal. So just everything is, very fortunate and blessed to be able to be a part of the organization.
She said that it's important to put the right people in place and let them do their jobs, but she's involved. Does she give you any tips on special teams kicking, or does she sort of realize what the boundaries are?
So it's unique that she's been in a majority of my meetings since I've been here. So she's very hands-on. And I think the thing that she's able to provide some insight in is not kicking or necessarily schematic-based. However, she has a really good understanding of the team, the players, kind of trying to make sure we can get the best out of those players, ways that we can kind of try to help guys in certain ways. And then, she's back there. If something doesn't make sense, she's going to ask a question. So obviously you're like, oh, wow, if that didn't make sense, maybe there's other people that didn't reach as well. So certainly there's different times I get feedback from her. Majority of the time, there's not any feedback or critique. But whenever there's something that does come up where there's a way that she sees that we could reach a player or, make some improvement, she'll certainly say that, and it's been very helpful.
That's the only way you really get to know what you're doing, though, is to be in those meetings and
100%, yeah. Yeah.
Ryan, you don't see many owners around the league have a headset on the sidelines during games. Were you caught off guard the first time? Do you remember when you noticed her on the sidelines the first time?
Yeah, so really to me, I just respected it, it's a ton of respect that she has spent years being heavily involved in the day-to-day operations of the football organization. She's really detailed and spent a lot of time to kind of know the ins and outs of everything that's happening and wants to make sure that we get, the absolute best that we can as an organization, that we're putting players in positions to be successful and can kind of reach the standard that we have set as an organization. So I just kind of respected that she was going the extra mile to both understand everything that was happening from a schematic standpoint, understanding that, and trying to get the best out of the players, the coaches, and being actively involved. I don't think it's a situation where, obviously it's not a situation where she's actively speaking on the headset or she's stepping on anybody's toes, or there's not any situations where, decisions are being going through ownership in that kind of a realm or situation. So it's not like a situation where anybody's being micromanaged. It's just a situation where she's fully involved in, the success of the organization.
Where have you seen Anthony Gould grow as a return specialist from this time last year to now?
Certainly just the experience. He kind of knows and understands the ins and outs of what's it going to take to be successful in the new kickoff model, what's it take to be successful, dealing with NFL punters. So he's got a lot more kind of experience, comfort. He knows the work and the schedule and the things that are going to be able to take, him to the next level. So he's really, obviously a year ahead going into year two, in a lot better position.
We don't talk about Rigo that much because he does his job well. But I think 2 years ago he was coming off the Achilles. And then did you see a jump last year? Because a lot of times, the further you go away from that injury you get, the better you perform. I mean, he did seem to have a strong season. Is there any relationship there, do you think?
Yeah, there's absolutely a relationship, Stephen. So, yeah, obviously great point. So 2 years ago, to start the season, coming off the Achilles injury, he didn't have a full offseason to, one, strength and conditioning, and to, two, work on his punting. So he started off the year a little bit rusty. I think he finished 2 years ago really strong. Last year, what you saw was from start to finish a really strong season. He set the franchise record for punt average. We nearly set the franchise record for net punt. He had an extremely strong season, which really, was him being a veteran that had a full offseason to be able to prepare and do what he needed to do. He's had a really strong offseason again. People don't talk about him, but I think we should definitely talk more about him because he's just really consistent. He's consistent, he's reliable, he's a veteran, he's been here. He's great for the young kickers that we have, and being able to provide them advice on what they need to do to be successful on and off the field, and to be able to assist them to help on the field kind of as their caddy and holder to make them successful. And he's a very good holder at doing those things as well. So really lucky to have, Rigo and Luke Rhodes, two really consistent veterans that we can count on.
He's kind of a good example for them as like a self-made man too, right?
100%.
I mean, he came in here just kind of what the guys are just looking at. And he's early.
Yeah, similar situation to, how Spencer entered the league last year and how Maddox is entering the league this year. He came into a situation where there was a veteran punter that everybody expected to be the starter, and he beat him out and kind of impressed people. And he had a, unusual background going from junior college to Hawaii. He was more of a kicker and became a punter. Really similar thing with Luke Rhodes, who was a linebacker who turned into a long snapper after he got to the Colts. So, and played, at FCS football at William and Mary. So both those guys have unique perspective that they can help provide those young guys.
Is there a stat that you look at on punting? Is it net? Is it touchbacks? Is it inside is there something that really?
Yeah, the gold standard, chap, for punting is net punt. Right now, the net punt does not always have to do, or isn't always an indication of the punter. However, to have a good net punt, you have to have a good punter, right? So the net punt is your punt average, right, subtracted from the return yard. So if you have a coverage issue that isn't the punter's issue, that certainly the net punt maybe isn't completely indicative of how the punter has done. But from the whole punt team standpoint, you want to have a good net punt. And the best way to have a good net punt is to have a really good punt with a hang time that correlates to the distance, right? So if you have a 45-yard punt, you want a 4.5 second yard hang time. If you have a 50-yard punt, you want a 5.0 second hang time. You don't want a 50-yard punt with a 4-second hang time because the coverage team won't have the time. Ashton Doolin doesn't have the time to get down the field and force the fair catch. So if you're doing a really good job of directional punting, trying to shrink the field, which Rigo does a really good job of directional punting and getting that ball close to the sideline so the returner isn't out in the middle of the field with a bunch of space, so you can directionally punt the ball well with good corresponding hang time, you're going to have a lot more fair catches and less return opportunities, which he's done a really good job of. So usually you don't want to just look at punt average, to me, which I think a lot of people probably look at punt average, because you can have a punt average and punt the ball 51 yards, but not have a good hang time and have a really bad net punt, and you're not helping out your punt team. So net punt's always the biggest thing, starting point for how's that punter doing and how are they helping out their coverage.
But that could be situational. If you're punting on a shorter field, maybe you've got a great, no return, but a shorter punt.
Correct. And so for then situational punting, you're looking at touchbacks, which 2 years ago he had 0 touchbacks, which was pretty incredible. Yeah.
Right. A couple more. Spencer is the lead guy in that competition. Is that?
Spencer certainly, as we kind of discussed earlier on, has a little bit of a step up in that he's already been in the league and he's already been here. But it is definitely an open competition, as I view it, that both those guys are talented young kickers, and we're going to end up going with whichever guy performs the best, under pressure, both in training camp and joint practices and in preseason games.
Brian, you may have talked about this before, but do you anticipate kickoff returns, the number of returns to go way, way up this year, just given the fact that the touchback line is increased 5 yards?
I do, yes. I do anticipate it will go way up because, again, last year, we kind of talked about this last time I was in here, last year the kickoff return rate was the second lowest in NFL history. 2 years ago, it was the lowest in NFL history, so the league said we need to change this. The change was to have this new hybrid or dynamic kickoff model that is sort of a version of what the XFL was doing. The reason that they didn't get quite the increase in returns that they were hoping for last year is because I think a lot of people saw there was an increase in explosive returns. You got the kickoff team kind of stationary, flat at the 40-yard line. Used to be in the old model, the kickoff team was running full speed. They would catch the ball, they'd be around the 30-yard line, and we would already have condensed. So the kickoff team, a little bit more of a disadvantage than where they used to be. And people saw explosive returns happening, which there was a very high rate of explosive returns last year. So people started kicking more touchbacks because you could just get the ball to the 30. However, people are not going to just concede giving the ball to the 35 this year, which is a big deal, right? So with the average starting field position on returns last year being the 29, a 6-yard difference instead of a 1-yard difference last year. So the average return last year went to the 29-yard line. Touchback went to the 30. Is it really worth a 1-yard difference if there's a chance, a higher probability of an explosive return? This year, that's a 6-yard difference since the touchback goes to the 35. So I think instead of seeing that return rate in the 30% range, you're going to see it in the 60 to 70% range. So I think you would see that double because nobody's going to want to just concede the ball at the 35-yard line. If that makes sense. Kind of a long answer, but just kind of give you a little bit of background.
Do you think that means more onus on practice time and repetition during the week?
For sure. For sure. And that's a healthy balance because I think that happened last year where people practiced it a lot more thinking there was going to be more returns. And we did that as well. And that's the same thing. You still have the same pie that you're pulling, pi being the time that you're pulling for practice time. So if you're pulling more out of your time for kickoff and kickoff return, it comes at a disadvantage to something, which is usually punt. The first season, or the start of the season last year, there were more blocked punts than there were the entire season 2 years ago, right? And you did not see that increase in blocked punts later at the end of last season. Maybe that's a coincidence, or maybe a lot of people spent more time on kickoff and kickoff return and less time on punt, and you saw some issues show up at the beginning of the year. So it's kind of a happy medium of how are you going to split improving the kickoff and kickoff return reps while not coming at a contrast or not coming at a disadvantage to your punt team.
You've heard from the head coach, you've heard from the coordinators. Like I said, Anthony Richardson was injured during the tail end of the Colts offseason program, so we did not speak to him during that last week of the mandatory minicamp. But we did hear from the Colts backup quarterback, who quickly turned into the #1 quarterback and is competing to be the #1 quarterback when this season begins. So maybe I shouldn't call him the backup quarterback anyway. He's 1A, 1B, him and Anthony Richardson. But it's Daniel Jones, the former New York Giant. Here's Daniel Jones at mandatory minicamp.
Daniel, it looks like, I mean, you seem pretty comfortable for a guy who's maybe still learning this offense. What's enabled you to kind of be able to get the ball out and be decisive like that?
I think just, building up reps, the preparation we do in the meeting room, the installs, being detailed and specific about our reads, where we need to be looking and where the receivers are going to be, how we're seeing certain looks. So I really enjoyed that part of the learning process and feel like that's helped on the field. But I'll, continue to learn and grow in my understanding of this offense and then, how to execute it. But I think it's been a productive spring from that standpoint.
I think the growth has gone just getting chemistry with some of these receivers, getting to throw to them and be around them every day.
It's been good. I've enjoyed working with them. It's a strong group of receivers and guys who can do a lot of different things. So I really enjoyed it. I think, certainly a lot of work to do still, but a lot of talent in that receiver room.
And how similar is this offense to what you had in New York?
I think there's pieces of it that you see that are, a lot of teams run similar plays throughout the league. I think, how we think about them, how they're, how they're executed, how they're coached, all that can vary, and certainly a lot of new concepts too. So, there's some crossover, but plenty of new ideas and different ways of thinking about things. So I've really enjoyed learning that part of it.
Daniel, obviously you came here for an opportunity to compete for the starting quarterback job, open competition. When Anthony goes down and you get more of the first team starting reps, how do you view that? Like, do you view it as like, okay, this is my chance to seize this job, or how do you go forward with that?
I think, just like you would in any situation. I think, just trying to prepare and grow with it every day. I've got a lot of work to do just learning this offense and getting used to it. So trying to focus as much on that and then playing good football when I'm on the field at practice.
Daniel, how much of this offense for you or your approach is getting the ball to the playmakers and letting the playmakers do what they do, and how maybe beneficial is it to you to have that option?
Yeah, I think that's always the job of a quarterback, is to try to get the ball to the playmakers and get the ball in their hands, let them make the plays. So obviously there's a timing, there's a read component to how to get them the ball, but I think that's always the quarterback's job, and certainly trying to do that.
What are your early impressions of Tyler Warren since you've gotten to throw to him a little bit?
Yeah, I think he's had a great spring. He's made a lot of plays for us out here, and you can see his feel, his instincts, his strength, just ability to go up and catch the ball. And I've really enjoyed working with him. He's has a really mature approach to his work and preparation, and that's shown up on the field. So we all, the whole group's got a lot of work to do together to get where we want to go, but I think he's had a really good spring.
What do you do between now and the beginning of camp to kind of expedite that?
Yeah, I know, everyone will work a lot on their own, try to stay in communication throughout the summer, and when we can get together and work out and spend some time together. So build on what we've done here. But I think everyone has the right mindset breaking today, going into the summer and knowing that there's still a lot of work to do. We have an opportunity to work on our own and then work together when we can this summer.
When you've got a quarterback situation.
Alec Pierce was telling us he's gotten to know you a little bit. He likes his game, but
Pierce is pretty good. I don't know if I can say I'm the best golfer on the team. Pierce is he's a pretty good golfer too.
When you in this quarterback situation, it's the open competition, but when AR goes down with the injury, does it just show you that you've got to be ready, and that's why you sort of tend to your business, because you never know what is going to happen elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always got to be your approach, and really at any position in the NFL is preparing to play and be ready to go. So, like I said, there's been plenty to work on and stay busy with from my standpoint, and just learning the offense and getting here, learning the guys, building relationships with everyone. There's been plenty to do, so I'm just been trying to focus on that.
Daniel, do you plan to get together with the wideouts this offseason?
Yeah, I think we're working through, how and when that's going to happen, but certainly, hope to get together and work.
How valuable is that when you can have those sessions? Like, what do you feel like it builds?
Yeah, obviously the work on the field is valuable and chemistry, but I think, just spending time off the field and hanging out and getting to know guys, building relationships, I think that's a big component of it.
I saw y'all work through some 2-minute drill stuff yesterday. What it's like to, have that success and kind of see the ball not touch the ground, and you are able to have some of those game-like scenarios and have success there?
Yeah, I think working 2-minute drill in practice is great, and being able to get those reps. You learn the system, your first and second down, your third down, and all those change, and then 2 minutes, kind of a different mindset, a different system a lot of times offensively. So learning that and how to execute that on the ball, up tempo, certain situations with the clock, and so managing all that I think is great practice, and good to have some success with it.
Good to remember where Pitt is. He seemed excited to catch that one yesterday.
Pitt's going to remind you where he is if you don't see him. But no, he's had a great spring too. He's been really good.
Daniel, with Alex Tanney being here, you had a relationship with him in New York. How much of a resource has he been for you, kind of disseminating the offense here and helping you out?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun working with Tanney and having that relationship, and really enjoyed working with all these coaches, with Coach Steichen, with Jim Bob, with Cam, Tanney. I think it's a strong group, and I've learned a ton just being here with all those guys. So I've really enjoyed working with them.
And on the other side of the ball, Charvarius Ward comes to Indianapolis as a highly paid, highly sought-after free agent, adding him to the secondary to be a number 1 cornerback here at Charvarius at mandatory minicamp.
What have kind of been your first impressions, with the whole defense kind of out there together? What are you taking away from this?
I like Lou as a DC. He really aggressive. He gonna let us get on guys, play some man-to-man, kind of play to my strengths and all the DB's strengths, and I think it's gonna be a good year for us.
Can this be a special defense, and why?
You said why? Of course it can be a special defense. I think we got great players at each level of the defense. On the D-line, secondary, they brought in me and Cam. They already had Kenny, got some young guys, Juju, and Jalen, so and Wally too as well. So I feel like we got great potential, but we just got to put in the work and enjoy the fruits of our labor. So it's just gonna come from a bunch of hard work. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of new guys in the group. How's communication been so far, pre-snap?
It's been pretty well. I haven't practiced much, but just watching the guys and watching film, being in the film room with them, I think we get on the same page with everything. With the coaches, they kind of learning us, we kind of learning them, and just learning each other. So, it's going to take some time, but from the start, it's been good as it can be from the start.
What is Wally maybe showing you?
He's shown me he can be a dog. He can cover real well. He has some, rookie mistakes, obviously, because he's a young guy, but he's been competing with all the big dogs on offense. So I think he got it in him. He got that it factor in him. He confident in himself. He's not scared. He don't act like a rookie all the time, you know what I mean? So he kind of act like a vet, got his head on straight. So I've been proud of him so far, for sure.
You can't really tell much about pass rush from OTAs, obviously, because you're not kids, but if you guys can get that pass rush going with the guys that you have, how will it translate to you guys?
Yeah, it works hands in hands. They dogs up front, so we just gotta let them eat, hopefully Coach Lou turn them boys loose and let them boys rest the pasture. First we gotta stop the run, but once we stop the run, I know them boys gonna eat, and that leaves the opportunities for us on the back end to have fun, you know, jumps and routes, you know, play good technique and make some turnovers.
You can be a little more aggressive when they get out there, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, it work hands in hand. Sometimes sacks be covered sacks. Sometimes the interceptions be because the quarterback made a bad throw because, you know, he had pressure on us. So I think it's going to work hand in hand. Perfect fit, for sure. That's the plan, you know? Yeah.
How has it felt for you getting back on the field? Has this been like the clean slate you were hoping for?
Kind of, sort of, a little bit. I've been kind of dealing with a little stuff with my body, but I'm just, you know, working to get my body back right, get my body back strong. I mean, I done played a lot of football. I think I damn near played 15, 16 playoff games in my 7 years in the league. So I done played 8 seasons in 7 years almost. So I done played a lot of football. So just kind of working in slowly, but I'll be ready for camp in the season to ball out and do my thing.
You said working through some stuff with your body. Is it just normal stuff this time?
Yeah, just getting stronger, you know, getting stronger in all areas of my body. Every offseason I like to create the weakness that I got somewhere in my body. So just been doing that.
Is that why you weren't doing as much earlier on in the spring?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I stayed back home early in the spring with my family. You know, I wasn't ready to be away from my family. So once I got back, you know, obviously these guys had already went through a lot. So I was kind of playing a little bit of catch up. But like I said, when training camp come back around, I'm going to be caught up and I'm going to be AP Mooney again. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's what I got planned.
Any plans between now and training camp?
Just work, man. Just keep working, continue to work. Like I said, I was playing catch up a little bit. So I feel like I'm in shape, but you always get in better shape, you know what I mean? So I'm just be grinding and spending time with my son and my girl.
Yeah. I mean, this is your business, so you don't have to talk about it, but I mean, will your family kind of be back and forth during the season?
Yeah, we working on that, man. We working on that. Yeah, we'll see about that. We'll see about that. I know they'll be at every game. You know, I need them around me. You know, they my rock, they my strength. So I'm pretty sure they'll be here. Shout out to my fam.
And that is the Colts Blue Zone for this week. Just a few more short weeks to go before the Horseshoes return together and join at Grand Park in Westfield for their preseason beginning. It is upon us. Training camp. Mike Chappell will be back soon. Matt Adams will be back soon. In the meantime, certainly follow us on Twitter at Colts Blue Zone. I'm Dave Griffiths at DaveG_sports. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone Podcast.